Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the iOS Lead Essentials podcast. Here we discuss the strategies in your journey to become a complete senior iOS developer. My name is Bogdan, I'm a senior iOS developer and lead instructor in the iOS Lead Essentials program, the online training program for iOS developers who want to become complete senior developers. Today our special guest is Ryan from Hong Kong, a senior iOS developer and student of the iOS Lead Essentials program. Hi Ryan, and welcome.
Hey Bogdan.
It's good to have you, man.
Yeah, good to have you too, or good to be here.
Nice. So can you tell us what your achievements are with the program that we can explore today in our conversation?
A couple are confidence in my code. I've doubled my salary. I've learned all about architecture.
Nice. Congrats on that.
Oh, thank you.
It's quite interesting. So I want to hear more. And for you watching this podcast, stay until the end to learn how Ryan did it and you can achieve it too. Our goal is to find these replicable steps that others can follow to achieve the same. Okay, Ryan, let's start with your background. So how long have you been in iOS development?
I've been doing iOS development since 2016, so 7 years now.
Nice. And what did you do before that?
Before that, I was in university, so I've been doing iOS development my whole career.
Nice. And how did you start with it? Was it a course you took in faculty or was it something else?
Yeah, so actually my course was specifically for mobile development. It was very hands-on, so it gave me a launching pad that I think a lot of fresh grads don't have, so that was good.
Now you're here for already quite a few years, right? Still
Mm.
in iOS. And I don't know, how do you see your career moving forward? Like, have you set any longer term goals?
I mean, typically my goal is to keep learning and to keep being better at what I do. I would love to be a team lead someday. That's mostly it for now.
Nice. So it's kind of a standard progression, right? To move from
Mm.
a first technical position as a developer, then going to a senior position where you get more and more experience, and at some point, a leadership position comes into discussion. I guess that's how most people see their career path going. So let's talk about the IS3 Essentials program. So how did you find out about the program, about the channel? Like, how was that?
Yeah, a couple years ago, I was at my old job. I was really unhappy with my compensation, just what I knew. So I took a leap, quit my job, and just decided to take time to figure stuff out. And over that course, I interviewed a lot, and I kept coming up short in the interviews. And it was quite frustrating until one interviewer, he took some time to, give me some advice. And it was great. It was, I think, in Hong Kong, people are busy. You don't get that a lot, but it was really helpful to have someone take the time, and he actually told me to check out the program. And at the time, I do remember seeing videos on YouTube, but I never watched them because they were like an hour long. But yeah, I checked it out, and after the crash course, I was pretty much sold that this was something pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, the part I liked is somebody just taking the time in an interview.
Mhm.
Like you said, even though everybody's busy, everybody has their own agendas, but sometimes you just had that opportunity to help somebody to help them with their careers and just let's say, okay, let's spend 5-10 minutes here and maybe I can give you a hand. And I think just that's just great. I mean, you probably not don't remember their name or much more
Mhm.
about it, but still that thing stuck with you. And I tried doing that when doing interviews on my own. It's not always possible, but sometimes you click and sometimes maybe you can say exactly what the other person's looking for. So I'm happy to see others are achieving the same.
Mhm.
And of course, like yeah, when you get exposed to the content in the crash course in the YouTube channel, then you are sold immediately, like you said.
Mhm.
That's pretty nice. Awesome. So how was your developer life back then? Like what was that going? Did you feel like you were progressing? Did you struggle with things? Like how was it?
Yeah, so I worked at a company with a very small mobile team. It was an agency, and I mean, I thought it was big at the time because, coming from a startup, it's a 100 plus company. But we only had a handful of mobile devs. And we always worked typically on different projects. I mean, I had worked with some of my colleagues, I saw their code and I was kind of convinced that my code was better. So I couldn't learn from them. Yeah, yeah. And I think in terms of progression, I was mostly, looking at like articles like Hacking with Swift and a couple others, and they would teach you how to use certain Swift features, and then iOS Dev Weekly, they would tell me or show me the new tools or all these different things I could use. So I thought that that's what it was all about, and I had no clue about architecture or anything higher than the really detailed stuff of the language.
Yeah, that's it. You kind of nailed it. So I think a lot of developers, myself included, were or are in that position where let's say, yeah, we invest in studying. Like we get the iOS Dev Weekly, we see the new tools, the new libraries available to do this and that. We see the some tutorials, like you mentioned. There's a bunch of others like I don't need to name them. Like everybody knows the sources for new content every week, right? And you read these and you're like, yeah, I'm on top of my game, right? I know everything that's new, but it's like you said, like you see very few mentions or very few content about architecture, about modularization, about
Mm.
keeping a code base solid, clean, transforming legacy code into well tested, well designed code. So all that stuff is just maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally left out of these shiny new gigs every week that we get. And I was in the same position and thought I was up to date with everything. Just watch some WWDC videos every year and be done. Like, but there's much more to software development than just using the latest framework and libraries out there, right? So awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I kind of had a deja vu feeling when you were describing, especially with the names and everything. Yeah.
Mm.
And how was your, let's say you talked about coding skills and coding in general. Like how do you feel you were at that skill? Like was it creating any issues for you, or was it just a feeling that you thought something more was possible but you didn't know what? Like how do you describe it?
I think I've always had a good eye for organization. So I think that helped, just in terms of trying to make things simple and clean. But I would still try to shove everything into the view controller. I would still try to, I thought that was the framework I had to work with. And I remember being exposed to the coordinator pattern, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. This works for navigation. And yeah, I don't have to have a huge switch case or switch statement in my view controller. And that helped a little bit. I mean, I was quite proud of that at the time. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think I just had no idea that there was much a much deeper level to it.
Awesome. So just to recap, I think you mentioned struggling with architecture, struggling with just I don't know, trying to fit everything into one pattern. I think I've definitely done the same quite a few times, and probably our viewers too. It's just that because of a lack of a better example or a better knowledge, you don't know what to do, and then you just put everything in a controller.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Like I think you also mentioned just having or not having the confidence in that code that you can produce. I mean, you saw yourself compared to your colleagues, which weren't many, so you know how you rank maybe amongst them, but also know that there are others that have other practices out there. And so you had these struggles, and then you found out about the iOS 3D Essentials program. And how did you decide to join? Like, you just have second thoughts. How was that?
When I was recommended to the course, I checked out the crash course. I think I guess it was like that you released a video every day, going through like the progression. And I mean, I remember being just mind blown by what you guys were doing. It was completely new to me. I remember one of the things that stood out to me was having the interface, and you essentially had, from the controller point of view or the view, you just had the one interface. But on the other side, that interface was doing caching, it was doing remote loading. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's it makes everything simple.
Yeah, the power of composition, right? Because then behind that interface, you can have composable types and, like you said, compose caching with networking, with, I don't know, threading and a bunch of other things. And the view controller knows nothing, right? It's just, I need an interface to load my items and be done. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So how do you actually decide? Like, was it just like I need that skill, kind of a narrative, or was it something else?
It was kind of a light bulb moment. It was just, this is great. This is something that is extremely valuable. And yeah, I mean, when I knew how much it cost, when I finally found out, I was a little bit hesitant, but at the same time, I was just on a mission because I wanted to get out from where I was. And what you demonstrated in the crash course, I was just like, if the rest of the course is like this, I think this is money well spent.
Agreed. Agreed. So then you joined the program. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, starting from the beginning, I think the way I would do it was I would watch a video first, and then maybe the next day I would follow along with the video myself. So I guess my approach was try to understand what was being done first, and then try to replicate that the next day, and then it would just rinse and repeat, over and over again, until I finished the course. And then I ended up going back a second time, to go through all the videos, because I know there was still so much that didn't sink in, or just more skills that I needed to polish, or I could polish.
Yeah, awesome. I also took that from the course. Like, when studying something, just passing once through the content is not enough. I mean, you can always get more. So uh, awesome that you were able to do that. How long did it take to finish the course, and how many, let's say, hours per day or per week did you put in?
I think definitely the first time, I was definitely on a mission, so I think I probably spent an hour a day, at least one video a day, however long it was, and it was just my routine. I guess that probably means it took me maybe 3 months to go through the whole thing. Yeah, the second time it took much longer, but yeah,
Cool. So you went pretty fast for the first time, and then were
yeah, I was just very. I jumped really far in.
no, it's good. It's good. I think it's very efficient when you repeat something on a daily basis. Like, whatever skill that is, if you can put in an hour every day for like 3 months, like you said, it adds up, and you kind of get used to all that information, all these techniques, and your like learning process is much more efficient than if you were to do, let's say, 5 hours every weekend, or like some other weird combination, right? So consistency is key to, in my experience, to being able to sunk in details. And like sometimes you pick things up that you didn't even notice, right? So Awesome. So yeah, after 3 months, maybe more like something like that, you were able to finish the program for the first time. And how do you feel that then, or maybe after you went to it the another time, about all the struggles you had initially?
Mm.
Did you feel like major improvements there, or like stuff still needed to be done?
Mm. I mean, for the most part, all of it was extremely new to me. I think for the UI parts, I mean, the core data, also understanding the core data framework better, which is not really the focus, but I had to do that in parallel. But I think the UI part was harder for me to grasp. I think I was quite skeptical in terms of giving the UI table view cell its own controller. I think that was new to me, and I mean, it was, and it was kind of shocking. And I'm like, okay, well, this seems really complicated. Is this overly complicated? Yeah, and even with the, doing view model and MVP. I mean, I'm familiar with view model. I wasn't with MVP. Or yeah, I think the way that you guys did it was definitely based on needs versus based on let's fit this framework into how we're doing things. Let's it's like why do it? Yeah, just having to follow the follow it by the book, which I appreciate that you guys didn't do. It's what it's when and what you need.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the, first and foremost, the point of that part of the course is to show you that you can actually easily switch from different UI patterns, like from MVC to MVVM to MVP. It doesn't matter that much, because if you build like a modular, composable code base up until then, you just plug in a UI and that can use whatever pattern you want. And again, it's very important to think about this, like it's probably the opposite of following the pattern blindly, like we mentioned a few minutes ago about feeding everything in the controller. Whereas when you try to think about all the concerns you're putting there, if they belong or not in the UI layer, if you could do a different approach, which pattern fits you best, because that's another important question, right? There's not like MVP is better than MVVM. Like they're just two different tools which fit probably most of the same cases, but maybe in some situations one's better, a bit more fits better in your domain problem. So it's about that, and I think that's a very important lesson, because if you just use one of them, then the debate is always going on. Like, you should have used MVP, you should have done Viper. I think a lot of the aforementioned articles out there and content is about the UI patterns and why Viper is better than MVVM and why MVC always leads to massive view controllers. Like I think I see the same pattern as you do. I mean, that's my take. I'm really curious to see where you feel everything fits in,
Mm.
all the skills, all the principles.
Yeah, actually, I think with what we're talking about is what, even though I was only maybe a couple weeks into the course, that was the thing that convinced my interviewer to hire me, which was it doesn't really matter. It's not about fitting the framework into the app. It's about doing what you need in the moment, or what is best. Yeah, I wasn't saying let's just pick a favorite and then go down that road. So I explained to him the benefits of picking the right tool at the right time, and I think he was sold from that point. So and I was only a couple months into the course, so that was really just me regurgitating what I had been reading.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that, and I would like to think that it supports my idea. Where if you get exposed to the same ideas over and over, at some point you just pick them up, right? And
Mm,
then you can pass them on when you go to an interview, for example. In this case, like
mm,
you understand the principle behind everything is you use the tool when you need it. So like you said, I understand perfectly. Like you're not trying to build everything in the way the framework wants to build it, but you rather try to keep the framework in its own box, if you want, like at the boundary of your system, and nice and contained in case anything needs to change in the future, right? You want to have options available. You want to be decoupled from it.
Very
So
much.
yeah, that's it. And it happened so many times, at least in my career, where just frameworks were creating so many issues because they become obsolete, because they change drastically from one version to another when they become abandoned, and you need to use a different framework, and now all your source files were using the old one, so good luck with that. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we were very much bound to RX Swift,
Yeah,
and we wanted to get rid
exactly.
of it, and we couldn't.
Exactly, because then Apple comes in with Combine, and now you're like,
Yeah.
can we do this? Yeah, I know. I've seen similar struggles to other teams, and it is what it is. Like you pay the dividends of your early decisions later on, and if you make enough, let's say, unmaintainable decisions, then at some point you just have to throw away almost everything and rebuild from scratch. Like many companies end up in that position. It's just so costly to do it,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But going back to where we started from was you were able to easily convince the interviewer that you know what you're talking about, right? So I think that is definitely one skill to have, and I'm glad you were able to capitalize on that with an interview. Was that the interview that led to the new position with a big increase in salary?
yeah. So it was between this company and another one.
So how was that? Because I mean, usually people are curious, like how can you get a 2x increase in your salary? Like, do you get it through an interview? Do you get it through your own company if you stay there long enough? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least here in Hong Kong, recruiters are definitely they will our companies will only give you a raise based on your last salary, which is kind of silly. But when you get competing offers, that can really change things. So I think, unfortunately, here giving them the your salary is don't do it if you like last resort. But yeah, also getting the competing offer because when when they knew I had another offer, they still really wanted me, so they offered me more money, um, which is yeah.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing. I mean, of course, I haven't worked with the Hong Kong market up until now, and that's interesting. I never thought. Let's say there's a standard of just working with your latest salary and just giving matching that, or maybe giving you a small increase.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean, at some point you definitely need to adapt to the market you are targeting. So if you are looking for jobs with Hong Kong companies, then that's a good tip to know exactly how they work. And like you said, postpone giving that information if it's not helping you. Then just or have the other offers, the counter offers as well. So that's just knowing the game you're in, right?
mm,
So I like that. I think it's a good advice for people that want to target a specific area, geographic area, or a particular type of company they want to get to. Just see how they get new hires, what their process is, usual salary, like maybe mean salary, something like that, and do the due diligence.
mm,
I think there's in some of the podcasts or mentoring sessions, the Caio and Mike mentioned this, like just being prepared, like when you go to an interview, being prepared, like researching the company, reading their blog if they have one, like trying to understand how they work, what they value, all
Mm,
that stuff. And those things aren't like, you can do them as a junior, you can do them as a super senior. It's still the same. Like it's a part of the interview process which you can definitely improve on by just being disciplined and being interested, right? Seeing what their products are, if you have any things to suggest to improve, like stuff like that. I know works, and a bunch of others. So it's not always about technical skills. Another key point of what you said is how you articulate yourself during an interview, which is overlaps with your technical knowledge, but is not always in a one-on-one relationship, right? So you can have like huge technical knowledge and you just cannot articulate it, or I've seen even the other way around, where you articulate very well but your skills aren't that good. So it's it's something that you need to prepare to have in mind.
mm,
And I know the guys at least a few times recommended just doing some rehearsal sessions with a friend, with somebody close, right? Just rehearsing, being in that spot, like it takes away some of the pressure, and you feel more and more relaxed to doing it. So, but yeah, I mean, I was trying to capitalize on a few ideas from what you said and from what I saw, and definitely, I mean, uh, being able to do well in interviews can boost your career significantly, right? Like in your case, like
mm.
I'm sure if you get a 2x increase, that you know how to look good in an interview, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the course has definitely given me the confidence to talk a big game for architecture, and back it up. For a technical interview, I think once I'm past the coding question, I think I'm much more concerned about the coding question than the articulation part.
I mean, yeah, it's what we are probably most interested in
Mm.
as developers as well, but it also shows that you don't feel insecure in that part. So that's very good. And I think you mentioned getting that through that interview just a few months after finishing the course. Was that?
Actually, it was. I think I misspoke once. It was only a month after starting the course.
Oh, oh
Mm.
wow! So you didn't
Yeah.
even finish it yet. Okay,
No, no, no,
nice,
yeah.
nice, nice, awesome. So you're still in that position at the current time?
Actually, I'm at a new company now. I left that position in December. Yeah, but yeah, it's great now too. So
So how was the interview process with the latest company?
actually, I'm fairly impressed by my current company. I think it's just the HR is really good. I can't say that about my last company, which was a huge company. I never interacted with HR. So I think the process getting into the company was it was thorough. Three interviews, two team leads, and the head of the department. Yeah, but like I said, I think once I got past the coding question, I find it much easier. Yeah, it's being on the spot, having to do a task, and just being watched. And um, but something I've also learned is a lot of times they just want to see your thought process. They want to see how you work, and as long as you know I think you're making progress and you're saying good ideas or you're asking good questions. I would think maybe sometimes for a lot of companies, it's not about actually solving the problem. It would depend on the company, but I do prefer the latter.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I also look for when I interview people. Like you said, it should be the most important thing is how they think, how they react to, let's say, problems along the way, how they structure their solution, what things they consider, stuff like that, and not the fact that they can get to a working state or not.
Mm,
Even though that is important as well, um, all, in other cases, like you mentioned, they're more strict about it. So they they just want a working solution to validate you. So
mm,
again, it depends, and if you can get some feedback from people that interviewed with that company, that's ideal. I know I've seen some threads like that on our internal community chat where they just talk about the specifics of a particular interview, and that's very helpful information to know what they are looking for.
mm, mm.
Cool. So now you're kind of doing well with interviews in general, and probably more to come, right?
Probably. I don't necessarily look forward to them, but you can't stay one place forever. So
Yeah, I mean, and even with the same company, like you can still like maybe get promotions, get different team, get into a different team, stuff like that. It depends. So I think our market is pretty mobile, if I can say. Like intentionally use the word because things change a lot. Like they're pretty dynamic. So teams change, setups change, companies get acquired by other companies. Like there's always something happening. So there's just a few exceptions where you can say you've been in the same team for 5 years, 10 years, something like that.
not very
It's
common.
not, yeah, it's not that common. So you always have to be on your toes, right? Okay. Now looking back at all the information, all the lessons you learned from the program, like what would you say are the most transformational ones, the one that stuck with you?
I think getting a solid foundation, and I don't mean necessarily knowing all the technologies or knowing your language inside and out. I think it's knowing how to essentially scale to be able to create a product that is highly testable, highly maintainable, and at least this is kind of what I focus on more. And I think it's quite valid because yeah, because the companies I've been at, they're not looking for who knows the most about the language or who can do this or that. At least the technical people, they want to know, will you write something that can exist in the next several 5 years? Yeah. So for me, I mean, I would think that would be, yeah, just focusing on that, being sure that foundation is really solid. But I've also, yeah, but it's still important to have those technical skills and continue to improve on those. So I would say it's a balance, but for me, I would lean towards having those foundational skills first.
Just curious, since we do a lot of test-driven development in the program, what do you think about test-driven development, and if you use it in your projects?
Honestly, the first time I saw that in the course and they were writing tests and they didn't even have to run the app, that I mean that might sound kind of
Magic.
it is magic. And I was going to say it might sound, naive to, or like I'm really inexperienced to some people listening. But I guess, yeah, I was. I mean, I had no idea that you could do that. I mean, it had never crossed my mind before I left my job in search for a new opportunity. I had bought a book on testing, and it taught me how to test, but it didn't take me through the process. And yeah, I don't want to live without tests anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game changer, I think. Once you see how, and you tell me if it's the same, but once you have the confidence of tests to be able to refactor, to be able to restructure your code how you want, to know a change is just safe to be deployed without having to think about it thoroughly or test it manually for an hour or something like that. It's something that it's really sticking with you and you want to be able to replicate it. At least that was the case for me, but how was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I will not look at the simulator unless I have to, because for me, the test, I've learned that that test already gives me the validation that I need. I don't need to actually manually test the application, unless it's something specific. Or but I steer clear if I can, because I don't have to anymore.
And what do you think about the learning curve? Like, is it hard to acquire the testing skill?
It took me a while to get used to. I think having that process, the TDD process, was, yeah, it's a different way of thinking. And I've had colleagues that I've tried to showcase it to, and they struggled with it, and I think I struggled with it. But once you get the hang of it, it's you just so much quicker, and I'm so much more confident, and I'm not worried about my code breaking.
Yeah. So yeah, confidence is definitely higher when you
Mm.
have the tests to back you up. Nice. So you mentioned as the fundamental takeaway having the foundational skills. What other takeaways would you say you got from the program?
I mean, that testing, I think also the way the course has taught to think about things, and really explain things. And it's really challenged me and helped me develop my own thinking. And like,
Analytical thinking, yeah.
yeah, like, do I need this? Why is this the case? You can learn something, but if someone, a lot of times, someone might challenge someone on something they've learned, but they don't have an explanation. It just, oh, that's the way we do it. And it's not, uh, I'm not happy with that, at least.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think those are really nice. And of course, yeah, the confidence you mentioned, confidence in your skills, in your dev skills, confidence to release without feeling in jeopardy, I guess.
Yeah, even I've had a lot of colleagues that have more years experience than me, but because the things that I've learned in the course, yeah, like I can teach them things, and things that they didn't know yet. And and honestly, I don't know where people learn this stuff, because from my experience, yeah, a lot of colleagues, they don't know, or they're just getting into it. I asked my team lead, and he's like, "Oh, it's 20 years of experience that I've been doing all this stuff." Um, and at least for me, I didn't learn this in school. Um, and maybe people feel, oh, it's just something that you need to learn when you become an architect or when you become a tech lead. But yeah, I definitely see it as essential now. Like, it's just,
No pun intended with the name.
yeah.
Essentially. Awesome. So yeah, that's all great. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Any advice that you think other people should know of to be able to get their career to the next level, if you want to say it like that?
Well, I don't want to sound like an advertisement, but I would highly recommend you take the course. At least if I were to go back and tell myself this stuff, I would say focus on, and I keep saying fundamentals, because to me, what I've learned in this course are the fundamentals now. I don't really care if, people write code that's pretty mediocre in terms of like syntax or anything like that. While those things are important, like, I care way more about having a system that is maintainable, and all the things that you learn in the course. Yeah, so I would say, figure out that focus, that and also find the companies that value that as well, because I've been in a lot of interviews, and they've just asked me questions like, okay, well, what is well, not this simple, but what is an optional or something like that. I'm like, okay, like, I mean, yeah, it's great, but these are the things that you can learn more easily. I think it's much more difficult to learn how to think and how to have that architecture. Yeah, because again, system or languages, frameworks, they come and go. And yeah, I was definitely stuck in the trap of being obsessed with, okay, I need to learn all these languages or I need to learn this and that. But I have a lot less of that fear now because I know that software architecture is a lot more stable, it's a lot more secure, and it's what drives products.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think that's great advice. Just focusing on the fundamentals. And if I were to add, I would say a fundamental skill is probably something that's platform and language agnostic. So
Mm,
if it's specific to a framework, to a platform, then it's probably not the fundamental skill
mm,
you're looking for. So all the things we mentioned, testing, architecture, modularity, design patterns, and the list can continue, are all agnostic of platform, agnostic of language. They apply to web design, web design programming, to any kind of programming, like software development in general. And those are the fundamentals that we refer to when we say the fundamentals. And like you said, on the other side of the spectrum is like what's an optional. That's a very, it's an important piece of skill, but it only applies to Swift, so it's not easily transferable. Maybe, I mean, maybe you can build a case of optionals being like a multi-language feature where other languages have it, but still, it's not that important compared to understanding how to structure code, where to put everything, how to assure it's maintainable, testable, stuff
mm,
like that
mm.
we mentioned. So yeah, that's very very good advice. I would double on that. And yeah, that's probably like a good framework to looking at new content to learn, to study. Like, is it part of the fundamentals or not? And if it's not, then you can just add it to like a read later kind of a list, and not focus on it until you get these fundamentals right, because these are the ones that will help you with most interviews, with most positions that you have over your career. So the sooner you get these, the easier you have access to other opportunities, right? I think that's a way to put it. Okay, awesome. We kind of merged on this advice, because I also had my take, but it's definitely your idea, so I'm not
Oh, well,
stealing
you
it.
put it much better.
Yeah, awesome. So Ryan, if any company or individual wants to reach out to you, how would you say is the easiest way to find you?
Yeah, they could find me on LinkedIn. My slug is Ryan Neil Stroud. They can also find me at my email, if which is, let me just quickly be sure I'm getting it right. Yeah, it is ryan.developer.ios@icloud.com.
Nice. Cool, Ryan, iOS developer. So thanks for joining me on the podcast. It was really nice talking to you today,
Sure, yeah, it was great.
and thanks for sharing all the tips and especially the advice.
Sure,
And
no problem.
we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, would love that. Yeah,
For people watching, if you want to learn more, just visit us at essentialdeveloper.com, and there you can find a bunch of free resources to improve your iOS dev skills. And you can also find us on the social channels, YouTube, Twitter, and so on. Thank you, and see you soon.